All right. Well, hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us. Elizabeth and I are not in the same room this week, but thank you for joining Elizabeth and Jeff Beaudre, the owners of Tipple's Brews and Wines of Gainesville, Florida. This week, we are running off to Toro, Spain to enjoy the Matsu El Recio, which means tough, by the way. Yep. Tempranillo. So if you have not already done so, and I wouldn't blame you if you had, time to pour yourself a glass of this delicious, robust red.
Yes.
And we're going to work on our rolling our R's during this entire conversation.
And as usual, when I have this background, I have no wine glass. I did actually remember it earlier in the day, but Publix does not sell wine glasses. And I had a meeting that I had to run home to, so.
Yeah, we need to send up a pair of our good wine glasses up to Auburn.
Well, Reese does not want me to keep them here. He says he has no cabinet space that can be allotted to wine glasses.
All right, fair enough. All right, so we have poured our delicious Tempranillo. I gave this guy about 30 minutes in the fridge just to bring it down to roughly 60 degrees, European cellar temperatures historically. We'll see how that goes in the future. So, will you pull up the first slide for me, please, Elizabeth? We'll talk about food pairings and such.
Mm-hmm. Here we go.
All right. So, ratings in this guy, Decanter 89, Robert Parker 90 points on this beautiful wine. So right up there into the outstanding category. According to them, we will see what you think. Food pairings, they decided to get very kind of specific to the area. So Cordero Asado, lamb marinated in lemon, garlic, rosemary, and thyme. And cachopo, steak filled with cheese and ham, which actually looked really cool. So that is the pairings. This guy is, you can go ahead and take this slide down, please, Elizabeth. This guy's 100% Tempranillo is the grape. In Toro, they call Tempranillo Tinto de Toro. All right, so Tinta de Toro. So, but it is Tempranillo. So the same grape that you would find dominantly in Rioja, dominantly in Ribera del Duero, and in this case, even all the way to the western side of Spain in Toro, we are drinking Tempranillo. But Tempranillo is a great grape that allows for a lot of different expression. And this is a powerful, robust expression, which is really what Toro is known for. Alcohol content, 14.5%. Aged 14 months in oak, French oak and Eastern European oak, Hungarian most likely, not necessarily exclusively. Second use oak, so it's not new oak. A little restraint, but not much. I mean, second use oak is still pretty active, so we should have a significant oak effect on our wine tonight. So now's that time. Take a sniff, take a sip. We will begin discussing what we're thinking. So right away, so I'm getting vanilla, a toasted vanilla right on the top. So there we know we have an active oak presence, not a very neutral oak. This is an active younger oak.
So even, Jeff, even though it's a second use oak, it's younger?
Yes. Yeah, okay. It gets to much more like third, fourth use, that kind of a thing. Okay. And it depends on how active the char was early on, how much they were really aggravating the oak. But I would say this is not an incredibly aggressive oak, but it is certainly an assertive oak presence. So yeah, it still retains for the second time. There's a big drop off, I find, and this is after tasting a lot. This is not people walking around from second to third. Like third oak seems to really take a step back and relax.
Okay.
And then from there, just diminishing, so.
Yeah, even though it's oaky, I don't think it's as like sometimes like overwhelming as like a lot of like kind of Californian ones can be, where you take one sip and you're just like, oh, that's alcohol, right?
Right.
You don't get that like immediate sense of like overwhelming like toasted marshmallow or something else like that, as though you're having this like bomb of it. It's a lot more like structured and balanced, I think, where it's just like, oh, this is nice and complimentary and stuff like that.
Yeah, I like the call. You're right. It is definitely here. It's asserting its presence, but it's not dominating, which is what you get with that first use young oak, is a dominance. Like you called it like a toasted marshmallow. I would call it toffee. Either way, you're talking about that candied, toasty, caramelly kind of effect, which we're not getting here. This guy has got a nice toasty vanilla, a really nice spiciness going on. The tannins are assertive. There's definitely a lot of tannin there. It's really kind of wanting to glue my palate together. But is it unpleasant? No. Am I really battling through it? Am I drinking this feeling this wine wasn't ready to drink? Would be the big leaning point there. And no, I'm not. I don't feel like it's not ready to drink. I think it is ready to drink, but it's got a beautiful high tannin content, which I enjoy a lot, which can handle some robust red meats and dishes, right? So whether it's mushroom, depending if you're going vegetarian, or an alternative meat source in there, but this can handle some meaty, well, direct meat or meaty flavors, that kind of a thing.
So like mushrooms would work well with it too.
Right.
Like if you're not eating meat.
Right.
Then,
if you're not eating meat, mushrooms, lentils, you need something big.
okay.
Yeah. And you want to be on the savory side.
So I have a little problem with mine in that I got here and put it in the refrigerator. So it sat in the refrigerator for too long. And I took it out, but I took it out about 45 minutes ago. It still feels, it was in the coldest part of Reese's refrigerator. Unfortunately, it still feels a little cold. I like the taste, but I feel like I'm not tasting everything that you're tasting. So I'm trying to warm it up with my hands.
Right. If it's following what would be an expected protocol, you're probably getting a lot more red fruitiness rather than some of the darker. What we're getting is we're getting cocoa, we're getting earth, we're getting a really dark, dark fruit. And I wouldn't say, interestingly, as dark as it is, I would go, you're getting more from the earth to anchor it rather than like I would not say this tastes like dried fruit. And would you guys agree with me on that? I'm not getting a dried fruit quality on here, even though it is an intense dark fruit experience. Why is that? Well, that actually is part of the grape itself. And it shows the different experiences you can get with Tempranillo. And so we're going to talk about that as we go into the grape in just a moment here. So we'll finish talking about what we're smelling, tasting here. We'll get to a little bit about why is this tasting the way it is, and how is that related to other Tempranillo experiences. So like I said, aromas of vanilla, cocoa, red fruits, taste, a lot of red fruit, black fruit, baking spices, vanilla, and cocoa again. Hearty tannins. Actually, I think it's a big, robust, enjoyable red. For anyone that likes a big, powerful red, even those Californians, I feel like there's something here for you.
Yeah, it's interesting because even though I feel like mine is a little too cold, I am still getting like the grippy tannins, which I really like. And so are tannins affected by the temperature at all, or is that something that you get regardless, and it's just that you're not getting the subtleties of the different flavors if it's too cold?
They're technically not, but perceptually, yes. All right. So the perception in too cool, you're going to be the redness, the acid, when it will feel tighter and the tannins won't feel big and full like they can when it's cold. As it opens up and it relaxes, you'll still get a big tannin presence, but this is kind of a luscious tannin rather than a tight, bitey tannin.
Okay.
All right.
Mhm.
Definitely going to dry your palate still, but there is a lusciousness to this wine, I think. Let's jump to the slides again, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay.
Next slide, please. All right, wine label review before we move on. So this one's kind of fun. So you get to the front label here, and it tells you almost nothing, right? So you get there like, wow, thanks, dude. It says Matsu on the bottom.
I will say though, because I was there when they came in.
Right.
So when you do get, if you're comparing to the other two labels, then you do get something from the front, because there are two other wines that are in this line. One is an old man, one is a young man, one is a middle-aged man.
Right. No,
So,
true enough.
yeah.
As a group, they do tell a better story. You're right about that. Which I do love the labels. I'm not
There you go.
being nasty. I'm not being critical, but I am being practical. Whereas if you just walked up on this wine with no context.
Okay. I don't know if you can see everybody, Jeff.
No. I got
Okay.
nothing.
Paul and Linda have all three. So let me stop the share so everybody can see a moment. So they're holding up all three so that you can see you've got a young man, a middle-aged man, and an old man. And those are the different levels of the wine. You can explain it, Jeff.
Right. So it's the same thing with the vines. So we're dealing with young vines, mature vines, and then old vines, which I think is pretty brilliant. I like them. I like the labels a lot.
Oh yeah, well, it was actually pretty funny because I guess when they came in, Mike hadn't had a chance to look at them yet. And so only one of them was facing him. And so he only saw the old man and he said, yeah, I'm guessing there should probably be one with a middle-aged man and a young man. And that's what I'm guessing. And the other two were facing me. And at first I thought he was just being sarcastic about it. I was like, do you mean these? He's like, oh yes, there you go.
That's great.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. Okay, I'll let you go to the back again. Let me share.
Thank you for showing those bottles. All right, so the back of the bottle. All right, so we have Matsu at the top. That is the winemaker, right? El Recio is this particular wine, which means the tough. So it's the mature grapes, the mature vines. Here we go. Tinto Toro, which they say Tempranillo. So they call it Tinto de Toro, but they give it in parentheses Tempranillo. Respect on that call. I really appreciate that. You got the vintage. Give a quick description. When you get down here, you can see on the very bottom, the red thing saying it is from Toro. So this is a Tinto, just means a red wine from Toro region in general. We don't see an estate on here, and there's a reason for that, which we will discuss later on. So not an estate wine, vinted from the Toro region. So what you're getting out of here is you've got a Tempranillo from the Toro region, and you would say, wow, there was so much more to know about this, and it's so hard to and I get their problem. Like it's so hard to explain things on a label, which is why to me, this wine, kind of like what we were talking about, I think it was last week, we were saying it would do so much better in a store like ours, where you have people that learn the story and will explain to you why this wine is particularly good, so.
There's a little like seal on here that looks like a V with a leaf.
Yeah, the vegan
I can't
seal.
see what it says around there. I don't know if anybody can. Is that like some kind of sustainable or organic or something?
This is organic, sustainable, and vegan.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's minimal intervention on this. That is intrinsic to the region for the most part, but we are going to cover that as we get into discussing, as I drill down into the region where it's from. But good call. So it does say that, like that V with a leaf on there, it is a vegan. If you see something that says vegan, if they're taking the time to be vegan, they're probably organic or biodynamic, sustainable. Not always, but certainly you're going to be on the right track.
Yeah.
In this case,
Okay, I was gonna say, I do like that they have Tempranillo in the parentheses, because that is a grape that I recognize. I wouldn't recognize the Tinta de Toro. So, and we have a question from Paul and Linda.
okay.
So you guys can go ahead and take the mic.
Yeah, so my question was, I can understand the designation for something like organic, but vegan, like to me, I don't understand what wine wouldn't be vegan.
That's a great question.
Wait, can I do my guess?
Yes.
Does it have to do with the filtering?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so you can explain now.
So
I listen sometimes.
a common
It's the
technique.
one with the chicken fat in it.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
No. So a common technique for filtering wine to get the to make it so it's not cloudy is using egg whites. And so they put egg white in there. It'll collect a lot of the particulate floating around, and it does fall out, but there would technically be residual left, and that would make it non-vegan. That is the most common reason by far. I mean, you can also use fish bladders. There's a powder made from fish bladders, which is usually used in beer, but it can be used in wine, which would also pull the floating particles out of solution and have them fall and drop to the bottom. So that would be it. Whether it would almost certainly be egg whites or fish bladder that would cause it not to be vegan.
What do they use for vegan?
With vegan, usually they'll just do a gravity settle or filtration, a mechanical filtration. So depending on which way they do it, these guys with it being such a wine that is not particularly manipulated, most likely not a mechanical filtration. It's probably just gravity filtered.
Good question.
And it's so dark. I mean, when are you going to really see it, right?
Yeah.
So it's, this thing. But that's a great question. Yeah. All right. Onward and upward, if you don't mind.
Oh, real quick, just because I have young eyes, and that's a joke because my eyesight is terrible. So there's some really small stuff that I think is really cool. This is the most helpful back label that I've ever seen, because it also tells you what temperature it's best served at, and in really small text under the barcode. And they recommend decanting, but then also right below that, it says that they donate a portion of the benefits of the proceeds to sustainable ecological initiatives.
Very nice. Thank you, Robin.
Yes, just in case.
It has Japanese on the label too.
I've not seen that.
No. Awesome. Excuse me.
Are you eating?
Yeah, I'm having a little bit of a
Yes,
food
yeah.
pairing. All right.
Yeah, and while you explain the
good.
slide, I'm gonna go run and stir my pot real quick.
All right. Not a euphemism. All right. So Tempranillo as a grape is really flexible. It can grow in many areas, and it will show up with many different, and not many different, but certainly along a spectrum of results. So you can get a much darker version of Tempranillo to a light garnet, depending on the temperature it's being grown. It'll be lighter if it's higher altitude and cooler temperatures. If it gets a little riper, it's going to be darker and richer. At the same time, if you can batter it with some wind in some difficult situations to try and thicken up that skin, you're also going to get darker. So there's going to be a play back and forth on what you get from Tempranillo. The big thing about Tempranillo, which means early, is that it is a fast ripening grape. And so it plays a good role already in Spain. It's being used more and more throughout the world, because as people are worried about what they will be able to harvest with the climate that's changing and it's not behaving like it has for hundreds of years, they are moving toward Tempranillo because they feel like they can at least get a harvest in, because it does ripen earlier than a lot of other grapes.
So you think we're gonna see more of this in the market then?
Yes, I do. In fact, one of the areas that just approved Tempranillo of all things, Bordeaux, France.
Really?
Mhm.
Are they finally changing their minds?
Yeah, they've added 15 new grapes that are allowed to be blended in, and Tempranillo is one of them.
Sweet.
Right? Isn't that something? I was like, holy cow. Now, don't expect to see it anytime soon or in large amounts, but it is approved.
Interesting.
At least in the article I read. If that was taken away, but I can say I read it. I'm saying it because I read it. All right. So fair enough. Because
You read it on the internet, so it must be true.
it must be true. It was on the webs. So
Unless you read it in a magazine.
that's right. So Rioja is the traditional king queen area of Tempranillo in Spain. Rioja Tempranillo tends to be toward the medium garnet that you can see through. Much higher acidity. In fact, such high acidity, a lot of them to me are food wines, period. You don't want to drink them alone. They are amazing paired with a food, and by themselves can be a bit of a challenge. So here's my thing. We're dealing with a very ripe, robust version of this wine, but it is not, like I said, remember when I said earlier, but it doesn't remind me of dried grapes. It doesn't remind me of figs or dates, because it is a naturally high acid grape. So in this area, which grows this very ripe, robust, powerful version, it still doesn't become something that tastes like it's from dried grapes. Next slide, please. So Tempranillo flavors: cherry, dried fig, boom, there it goes. I guess it can be. I feel like, to me, if I were to say dried anything, I might say a dried cherry, a dried black cherry. But I still stand by the fact that this is kind of just a nice, powerful, dark, fruited wine without tasting dried, but they can be. And I think the main area where you would taste the dried fruit quality would be in the Grand Reservas, which are those wines that are aged the longest. So over time, it can develop some of that. But this is 14 months. This is not 8 years in the bottle. So that is going to be a different experience. And so right now, I would still stand by my not dried fruit, but very dark, intense fruit. Cedar, tobacco, dill. I think that we do not have dill in this. I think dill is normally a result of young oak, and a lot of Rioja, because that wine is so acidic and aggressive, they do use young oak on a lot of it, so you get dill. In this case, a riper version, yet still with intensity. They didn't use that new oak; they used second use oak. So I think we can throw dill out. I think we can throw the dried figs out, but it's still dry. Medium to full bodied, I give this guy a full body. Medium to high tannin, I give this guy a high tannin, which is in Tempranillo, that is a little bit more unusual. That's one of the things that I think is unique to Toro, is they tend to have higher tannins and be a little more robust that way. They have that power, and I like it a lot. Acidity, so medium to high acidity. In this case, this is just medium acidity. This guy's lower than what you're usually going to experience with Tempranillo on the acid, but higher on the tannin, which makes this a unique region, which is why I wanted to explore it. One of the other things that's interesting about Toros, because there's not a ton of it out there, they have very low production in this area. It's incredibly arid. It's difficult to grow there. Toro is commonly very, very expensive. And this guy, being as good as it is, as reasonably priced as it is, I think is a great find. I got excited and I jumped on it right away. And I knew immediately I wanted to share it with you guys, because I've been thinking about sharing a Toro for years. and haven't found the right one. ABV, we're at 14.5%. Boom, we're right at the top range. So, all right.
So I will say that Robin disagrees with you about the dried fig. She said before this slide came on, she said that she had said dried fig to Chris earlier. So I did tell her she got a gold star for identifying that. So she gets a sticker next time she comes in the store. But
Wait
yes,
a minute. Are you rewarding stickers for disagreeing with me?
I self-awarded myself the sticker for what it's worth. I literally just responded and I was like, cool, you guys have to give me a sticker now. So
All right.
I mean, if people are getting stickers for disagreeing with you, I have all the stickers then.
This may or may not be true.
Yes. So the tobacco is interesting to me because I feel like I'm getting that a little bit on the nose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For sure,
I
get
can
a
go
lot
there.
of smoke.
Yeah. Definitely. I have no issue. I think in this one, it shows up more in the nose.
Mhm.
It can be a lot more obvious in different Tempranillos.
Okay.
This is a little more fruit driven, which some of the Rioja Tempranillos actually really pride themselves on not being fruit driven. What's cool about Tempranillo is it can express itself in a lot of different ways.
Would you like me to advance?
Yes, please. Anatomy of grapes. So this guy it's a red wine that does not come from a particularly thick-skinned grape. Now, in this area, it is a brutally hot, dry area, so it does thicken the skin more than is common with Tempranillo. But Tempranillo, in general, for a red grape, has a thinner skin and is a large grape in relation to other wine grapes. So you end up having a larger juice to skin ratio rather than flipping it around like a Petite Syrah, which is a large skin to juice ratio, right? So that's why a lot of them you can see through and that type of thing because it's being overwhelmed. But in Toro, they are getting absolutely the most they can in the intensity of that skin. So you're not going to overwhelm what the grape is. So it is still dealing with a thinner skin for a red wine, a bigger bigger intermediate zone with a lot more juice and pulp, but they are getting a lot of intensity on that outer skin and peripheral zone to overcome that and to get all of this color out of there, all of the tannin and all of the flavor that we're experiencing. So it's an interesting give and take on that, where this really is a very robust version of the Tempranillo grape without going just overripe, where it would just be sweet and fruity, because we do have the other attributes.
Do you see that throughout the region of Toro, or is that just like this winery?
No, that is throughout Toro.
Okay.
That's why I love Toro. That's why I wanted to share a Toro, because it is this Tempranillo where I feel like this is blasphemy, but I feel like a lot of traditional Rioja Tempranillo suffers from too much acid. And unless you're eating it with a meal, it is not entirely pleasant to drink necessarily. All right. Some of them are, some of them are not. Ribera de Duero, which is a little further west, which we'll look at the map in a minute, has more that are easy to drink, right? And then you go much further to the west, you get to Toro. So it's just one of those things. That's a preference for me. A lot of people will tell me I'm insane to suggest that there might be anything about traditional Rioja locations that could be improved upon, but honestly, those guys are really, really food-driven wines, old world wines. They're very tart and they're amazing with food, but without the food component, they can be a little challenging. I don't find this guy. I think this guy jumps right in. Like anyone who loves a big cab, in Napa Valley cab, can jump in on this wine and say, all right, I have identified things that I really like about this. This connects with me. So I think it's an American friendly style, but with quality, not just pandering. All right, next one, please. Thank you.
All right.
All right, so where are we? We are in northwestern Spain. It's so funny.
Okay,
how I'm
over
controlling.
here above Portugal.
A little further south. They call it northwestern Spain, but it's about there. Yeah. And
Here?
we'll see
Okay.
it. Yeah,
He has to tell me where to put the cursor.
that's right. That, you've got it pretty much nailed right there. So
Okay, all right, cool. There we
let's
go.
zoom in. So right in the middle of the growing latitude in the northern
Yeah.
hemisphere, right?
Okay,
Makes total sense. All right, let's zoom in. I mean,
zoom in or
Yeah.
click.
click, go to the next one. This is zooming in. There we go.
Okay, all right.
So here's one thing I want to point out. So if you look in Spain, Toro, there you go, you find it.
I
So
did.
look how small a region that is. Like that is, it's a tiny little region. We are not going to another map where it zooms in. We're not, because it's not out there.
Okay.
Toro is, to me, just beginning to be appreciated. It still hasn't reached what it should get, because I think Americans will be losing their mind for it if they had it available to them and would drink it. It is a small region, and it is the same grape as Rioja. So if you look to the right and up a little bit, you see traditional Rioja, and that is where most of it comes from. Then you go to the left.
Sorry, I accidentally clicked. Okay.
So from the
Rioja.
left, people are beginning to get used to Ribeira de Duero as a secondary location, but Toro largely becomes ignored. And the thing is with Toro, it's getting ignored within their own country.
Oh,
It's a very small rural location, and people are moving away from it. And actually that aspect of what's happening to the region is instrumental in what we're drinking tonight, which I will tell you about when we get to the information about the winery. All right, next one, please. All right, so this area is all about sand, clay, and rocks, which we can see right here. I mean, you look at this, it's flat, it's arid. I don't know how anything grows there, but you know,
only grape or wine.
grapevines are
Thank you.
unbelievable.
Grapevines.
Unbelievable. I don't know how they do it. So you can see not trellised. So these guys are going to bloom out and just create a bush that then will be handpicked.
Well, and these are like, you can tell, I mean, they're old.
Right.
Yeah. They're so
So-
thick and gnarled. Mhm.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And a lot of them they've been there for hundreds of years, passed down from father to son, daughter to granddaughter throughout there. And Northwest Spain, sandy soil, pebbles, rocks, very dry. They have they're so dry there. They have almost no natural pests and no mildews, none of the fungi, none of it. They don't have to. So when we talked earlier about it being organic and sustainable, it's because they didn't need to. Like it just was. Like, why would they even start? And
Right.
that is the truth. It's the opposite of Florida. So you got Florida on one end of the scale, and then you have Toro Spain on the other.
Now on the map, I saw it looked like there was a river that went right by it.
There is a Douro River, which
Okay.
is it's the one that runs over into Portugal.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So are they irrigating from that? Because like,
You know, I'm going to tell you, a lot of the Spanish grapes are grown with no additional water, and I don't know
Really?
how. Yeah, they just the roots are able to reach deep through this soil and get down deep, and then they do get moisture during the winter, and then it stores some water down deep. During the summer, the sun beats the heck out of them. But they've got this down there from the winter where it's gotten cool, it's rested, and they have all this energy ready to go. So, All right, let's go to the next slide, please.
Okay.
We'll see some of the rocks. I mean, look at this. There it is. This is also Toro,
I mean, you really do wonder how anything grows there.
right?
I wouldn't look at that and think, oh, this is perfect for planting something.
Right. So a long, hot growing season after the winter. They don't get rain until late in the season. They don't have to worry about that. So these guys are allowing the grapes to hang. So even though Tempranillo will ripen early, they're leaving it for an extra long ripening period in order to gain more character. And I think that's what we're getting here when I talk about that extra robustness. When you deal with a younger grape, you're going to get more acid. That's how it is. Acid falls off after it's ripened. And so these guys are allowing them extra hang time for a very different expression of Tempranillo.
Okay, so we do have a question from Linda. So when I'm thinking about like let's say a water oak, their roots are really, and this is my part of it, just leading into hers. So their roots are really shallow.
Right.
So like after Hurricane Andrew, when all the oaks were falling over, they were falling over because their roots were so shallow. So they just rip up things and you'd see like all the grass would be up in the air and everything. So Linda was wondering, so how extensive is a vine's root system? Is it wide? Is it like, how deep does it go? Do you know? Like,
it's deep.
It's deep. Okay.
It's deep.
So-
that is what you want to get your old vines, is a deep root system going very much down, not wide. Yeah,
Okay.
that is the important part of it.
So they're still grabbing water, moisture, even in this
That's
area.
right.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So the Toro region of Spain,
Oops.
no, according to the website I was looking at, they have not, and that's fine. Like that's a good view. It's like, because we looked, that was a very close-up view of inside the vineyards. Here we have like one of the towns in Toro. You can see very arid. You don't see trees all over the place. So they don't know where the name Toro, which means bull, came from, but it is now an exemplary description of the type of Tempranillo they grow. Big, powerful Tempranillo. It should be Toro, right? It just should be. And that's one of my things. That's why I love this region and why I wanted to share it with you guys, because I look, I love a nice Rioja Crianza and, Reserva. I love all those wines. They're great. Not everyone, by the way. Not an automatic win for me in that region, but Toro, I rarely find a Toro that I'm not impressed by. The nice thing, and why would that be, right? There's not a ton of them that I get to taste. So only the pretty good ones are going to get over here. I'm sure there's crappy Toro, but it's not making it across the ocean. It's such a small region anyway. And then because I like that ripeness, the robustness of there, which reminds me almost like a Californian expression of what Tempranillo could be. Which I hate to be a homer, where you're like, oh, go back to California, USA guy, fine. But it is what it is. All right. So let's see. By the way, they began growing grapes here pre-Roman times. Pre-romantic? Does that make sense? I don't know. Probably.
So like BCE?
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah,
I
like
know
no
London
direct.
was established in the year 1. So
Right.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know when the Romans were in Spain.
right.
Jerry could probably tell us.
It's
He
long
always
enough
corrects our
ago.
history.
Yeah, it's long enough ago that their bottom line is we don't know.
Oh, wow.
How about that? There we go.
Okay. Yeah, there you go.
Caesar was there in 50 BC.
50 BC. Okay, there you go.
There you go. So yeah, it's so at least from that, it's from that period of time. So
Yeah.
all right.
So 2000 plus years.
Yeah. Yeah, they've been growing grapes there a long time. So somewhere there's like a 500-year-old grapevine, just no one knows it's 500 years old, just bringing out these grapes. Like, if we would just do wine from this one
Vine.
vine, it would be The most expensive wine in the world.
Amazing.
All right, next one, please. This would be the
Oh, okay.
video. There we
All
go.
right, so just in case I have to do some things during it, this is in Spanish. I did put the subtitles on in English earlier, but I don't know if it resets every time you hit play, so I will pause it and put the subtitles on in English if they aren't already queued up.
Es una reacción por la que Tinta nos sentimos atraídos.
Okay, so hold on a moment. For
It
those
did reset.
who can't understand that, yes. Okay, so hold on a second. Auto translate, and it is an auto translate, so you know it could be a little odd. All right, so let's try this again and see.
Tratarse de una zona que tiene muchísimo viñedo viejo, mucho del pefiloxérico y que favorece mucho la agricultura ecológica. Todo ello nos animó a venirnos aquí para tratar de buscar una elaboración de vino muy natural y tratar de sacar la esencia del gran terroir y de los viñedos viejos que nos encontramos en esta zona. ¿Qué significa esperar? Es una colección de vinos que lo que tratamos es de hacer un homenaje a 3 generaciones de agricultores. Agricultores que al fin y al cabo en la elaboración de vinos de agricultura ecológica son los mayores protagonistas. En segundo lugar vamos a catar Matsu el Recio. Es ya un vino más criado que el Pícaro, un vino no tan joven, un vino que suele permanecer en torno a unos 14 meses en barrica de roble francés de segundo uso. Este en concreto es un Recio 2010 y lo mismo que el Pícaro, es un 100% tinta de Toro, viñas viejas de la denominación de origen Toro, viñas de en torno a 100 años de edad, pues que nos van a dar de nuevo pues esa estructura, ese vino potente a la vista, ya pues de nuevo destaca pues por esa gran capa, ese color intenso. Y en nariz de nuevo destaca muchísimo por su intensidad. Hay muchos matices de fruta negra, fruta roja también, pero aquí ya aparecen muchos más matices terciarios de la barrica, especias como el clavo. Y en boca es un vino denso, estructurado, potente, pero que sobre todo de nuevo sorprende pues por el fácil paso de boca. Esa sedosidad, esa redondez, pues que hace que sea un toro sorprendente.
All right, thank you. All right, so 3 levels of Tempranillo available. We talked about El Pícaro, the young vines, which is called the Rogue. El Recio, which is the tough. That's the one we're drinking tonight. And then the last one is El Viejo, otherwise known as Jeff. So those are the vines that are actually 100, the vineyards that have been there for 100+ years. All right, for that. And by the way, so El Pícaro, the young vines, they run from anywhere from 10 to 15 up to almost all the way 80 years. So there's some of everything in there. El Recio, which we're drinking tonight, is the average around 90 years. So we're dealing with some old vines, even to, tonight. They mentioned Matsu means wait. So, wait for it. It's going to be good. What I do love about this winery is they came in there and they saw, which they didn't cover a little bit, maybe because they might worry about, they don't want to make anyone sad, but the region is in an area in which a lot of people are no longer staying to follow the traditions that had been there for these hundreds of years. And the children, the children, the grandchildren are not taking over the vineyards, and they were dying and being left fallow. And these guys came in and they said, this is insane. We have these amazing old vines here. You guys need a winemaker that'll make good use of them. And that's what they did. So they are a negociant, but it's kind of like when we were drinking the the Luca Syrah from down in Argentina, when they were in the Uco Valley, and those guys had just been selling off their grapes cheap, even though it was really high quality, and nobody was giving them the appreciation they deserved. And Laura Catena came down there and said, hey, let's change what we're doing a little bit and make this to be much more reasonable for what you're doing, and maybe keep this going on instead of having it die out. That's what's been done here with the Matsu wines, is they came in, they're giving them long-term contracts. They are elevating the level of wine production being made with these amazing grapes and keeping them there for the future, so that these wonderful grapes, I mean, just to think about these vineyards being walked away from is insane to me.
So is this a relatively new winery then?
Yes, it is. It is a relatively new winery with very old vines at its disposal, because
That's
it's
amazing.
wrapping them all up with contracts.
Yeah.
Which I think
So-
is really great.
In the video, we saw the 3 bottles that Paul and Linda showed us earlier.
Mhm.
There was a 4th bottle. Do you know what that is?
No, it's not available here in the state of Florida. So
Okay.
I don't know if it's a dessert wine or if it's an even older one, which is, otherwise known as Jeff Next Year. So it's I'm not sure what it is. I'd have to look at it on the website, but it's not available in the state of Florida. So I have
Okay.
not seen that until the video.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yep. The Story Gang wanted to know about the 4th bottle, but I did too. I mean, when I saw it, I was like, wait a second, I haven't seen that one. Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, and it was interesting because it almost looked like, I mean, we only saw it for a second, but it almost looked like the same man, but further away and black and white. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if it's not maybe a late harvest dessert wine or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Let me see here. Creative Masters creative collaboratively work. I think I covered it all. Yeah. But so I consider it such an amazing win-win, because great wine, in my opinion, great price from Toro, and sustaining these wine growers that have been doing it for generations really, really well. Never even employing pesticides and all these things that we don't want anymore. And you just get everything you would want out of there, including great wine. So my hat's off to the winemaker and the winery owners there for the great idea, pulling it together, and providing an amazing product. So here we are from this tiny, amazing region in Spain. We just get to enjoy it in Gainesville, Florida. So
I love how you say we don't want those anymore. You can tell Jeff and I were born in the 70s when DDT was all over everything.
yeah, right. Hey, can you give me some more DTD on this? The DDT?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
delicious. Yeah.
It was back when we had an alligator underpopulation issue in Florida.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That and eagles.
Well, yeah.
So,
I'm just,
anyway,
I was just comparing it to now when we have like a lot of alligators. So
we have so many alligators
so
now.
many alligators, y'all.
All right. So that's the story for tonight. So any last thoughts before I go on to thanking my sources, and we'll talk about ratings?
I think it's a great wine, especially for the price. I think it's exceptionally well balanced for being as like big as it is. And I thought it was a really good food one. Like the first 20 or so minutes we were eating it with like a baked pasta and a red sauce, and so like I thought it was great with that. It holds up on its own. It's really nice.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and he mentioned big wines, and you also kind of touched on it earlier of like, this is a big wine, but not like California cab big. And that's something that's been always interesting to me, because going into Tipple's Tuesday, I was like, I like big red wines. And then everybody here is like, I like California cab big wines. And I'm like, oh, but it's interesting to see like the differences in big wines, because I like this because it's kind of spicy and it has the tannins, and that's what is big to me. So I think having that like context of being able to clarify what I consider big is very helpful.
Right, I get what you're saying, because what it's missing is that overwhelming big oak from a young oak barrel. It's got obviously this was a huge rough edge wine. The oak is there to tame it. And I think they did a beautiful job of having them go hand in hand without anyone taking over the process. Does that make sense? Did I encapsulate kind of what you were going with? Okay, cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were kind of talking about that too, of like the differences of like what people see as big in California cab and stuff like that. So that's also helpful to hear you kind of describe that on a more like granular level than I'm able to.
Well, no, not at all. But I'm glad you like it. I really am. That makes me happy. And I agree with you. It makes it easier for me to connect with your statement, because I'm like, I'm right there. Yeah, that's right. I agree 100%. So
at the beginning of the recording, you were talking about the notes. Did I hear toasted coconut, or was that cocoa? Did you say
cocoa?
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, I thought you said toasted coconut, and I was like, yeah, I could kind of see that. But.
And by the way, that's not wrong. That's not wrong. Like a toasted coconut. So you're going to get a little coconut from a younger oak, right? And this is not, it's not old oak. This is a younger one. So if you were to go with a little toasted coconut, there's nothing. That's not wrong. That's fine, because it has a toasty vanilla thing going on. So I have zero issue with toasted coconut as a tasting note.
Fine palate.
Just gotta work on your listening skills.
But I would go with cacao as well, which I say cocoa. Whether you say cocoa or cacao just depends on how exotic you want to sound, I guess. But
I don't know, the spelling bee game that we play, they accept both cocoa and cacao. They're spelled differently.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
No. All right. Shall we jump on to the next slide?
Sure. Hold on.
We got to do something quick before Russ decides to talk.
He keeps turning off his mute, so I'm not sure if he wants to talk or not. And then I see him kind of just like doing this or falling asleep. I sent him a text that said, wake up, but he didn't send me anything back.
I apologize. It's been 2 very long days and then 3 months of 16-hour days for 7 days a week while I renovate and work in Jacksonville/Gainesville. So I might just pass out. We never know. But this wine has legs for days. It's just gripping the glass. It's crazy.
Very syrupy.
It's a glass stainer. It's a tooth stainer. I love a big red. I do. I mean, I'm a sucker for it, but I love it from all different areas of the world with slightly different nuance. And to me, this guy gives us something we haven't necessarily had before in this exact profile. It doesn't taste like, I would challenge you guys, could tell me I'm wrong, but I would say it's a big, powerful red that does not exactly line up with any of the other ones we've had in over 2 years. I mean, you can tell me I'm wrong, but I think it's got uniqueness to it, which made me excited. So ratings on this guy. So this guy's rated 89.90. So we're not dealing with a guy that and you know how I say, I always take it with a grain of salt. And the other thing I say is 89-point wine is an exceptionally good one. That's a good one. Well, it's a very good wine, maybe not exceptionally good, but it's a very good wine with special qualities, at least. Or a 90, I like how, but to me, the vernacular of what we're saying, we say, oh, it's a very good wine with special qualities. And then at 89 and at 90, we suddenly say it's an outstanding wine. That seems like a big jump in description, but regardless, whatever you guys think is what matters. So would you say this guy is a classically great wine that should be here for all time, an outstanding wine of superior character and style? And I would add uniqueness to that. I think that matters. Or 85 to 89. Hey, that's a very good wine. I'm super happy I bought that wine, because also, which we never qualify. Well, we don't tend to discuss this in the industry, except for me. Every week, you guys are tired of hearing it. I get it. But 80 to 84, if you plunk down some money and you say, that was a good wine. That was a good wine. It was well made. there should be nothing wrong with an 84 point wine, especially depending on the price point. But people consider that anathema, and they're terrified of ever putting it out there that their wine might have gotten an 84. When the bottom line is, if you've got a $17 bottle of wine that's an 84, and it's a good, solid, well-made wine, that should be a point of pride. That's just me. So with that being said, Elizabeth, will you please stop sharing this slide, and everyone throw up onto the screen. Don't throw up. Put your score onto the screen with what you think about tonight's wine.
And Jeff, can you see the chat now?
I
Can I
can.
stop sharing? Okay.
I see some things I like very much from the story
Okay.
game.
So Chris says 89 to 91, but I like it more than that, if that makes sense. Robin says 92 and 93. Brenda 94, John and Linda 93, and Laura 92.
Nice.
And then we have Julie 90, Brian 91. And then
That is unexpected.
Jerry, is it just you or are you? Okay. So Jerry's 91 to 92 in
Nice.
that range. So
So the important thing is, what do you think, Elizabeth?
So I would say 92. I really like it. I'm not having it with any food and I'm still liking it a lot, which is interesting considering what you said about the grape itself earlier. So I think that's a reflection of the region then, that I'm not having it with any food and I'm still very much liking it. I liked it even when it was very cold. I just felt like I wasn't getting everything I should have out of it. As it's warmed up, I'm liking it more and more. It was interesting because like when I took the cork out, it's just me. So I licked the bottom of the cork and I was like, oh, vinegar.
Oh,
Not sure about this one, but it was literally just the bottom of the cork. Everything else I've really liked about it. So, and Russ said it drinks way above its price. He has a range of 87 to 90, which is kind of a big range in the wine.
well, that's true. In the wine world, that's like, yeah, because like people would be like, oh, an 87, I'm going to hide that rating. And a 90, they want to tell everyone in the world about it.
Right,
But
right.
Russ isn't wrong. The industry is wrong with the way they use the numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and either Chris and Robin agreed with something.
Yeah, but I agree.
I think it punches way above its weight. That's how I meant, but like I like this a lot. I think if I'm like grading this, I'm giving it a solid like B plus A minus. But I like this a lot, especially for the price.
Yeah, it gets bonus points because it's like a very good price for something like this.
Yeah.
I happen to agree with you. It's funny. I was just literally about to say it punches way above its weight class. And then Chris, so we've been hanging out a lot, evidently. That's good. But it does. And I think that does add a point on, because honestly, I've had some other delicious Toros in the past, but they tend to be $50 to $130. I mean, this is a great way to get into enjoying Toro, a really great version of Toro, crazy good pricing on there, which is why I jumped on it right away. I tasted this 2 weeks ago with the wrap. It's a new distributor that just moved up into North Florida from Miami. They haven't really been available. And I was like, nope, instant yes, that is going to be the wine of the week. This is what I've been looking for. Because I've been eyeballing Toro for a while, but wanting to get the right wine. So I'm really it looks like it was a winner, which makes me happy every time. I know I might say that regularly, but I care every single time. I want you guys to enjoy the wine in the experience. If you had it without me talking so much, maybe it'd be better. Who knows? But all right.
You get a gold star for disagreeing with yourself.
Yes. Let's go to thanking our sources, and we'll look at what we're going to be drinking next week. Oh, look, no one here to share this with. What a shame.
Yeah, well, he's not here right now. I actually do have someone to share it with, but he won't drink it. So if we were tasting beer, he would be all about it, but no.
And that's true.
Not with the wine.
Yes, blah, blah, blah. So let's thank Wine Folly, as always. an amazing wine educational source. If you're not talking to me, go to Wine Folly, 750.com, Wikipedia, Wine Spectator, Bodegas Matsu, and Decanter Magazine. Thank you all so much for sharing your information, photos, and maps with us this evening. And so next week, we are going to Argentina. All right. So the Antigal Aduentas Cab Franc. So we're drinking Cabernet Franc. Wine Enthusiast 90. This guy, so we're dealing with the Papa to Cabernet Sauvignon, the Papa to Malbec, Merlot. So this guy is usually a blending grape over in its origin, which is Bordeaux, France. But in South America, my opinion, they do something special with this to make it, to bring out its best. It's often in France, its lack of ripeness gives it a lot of green characters, which gives a lot of character to the wine. But that's why it ends up being a blending grape, usually, except in one specific region. But in South America, they really get it riper, and it brings out this other quality, which I don't know that the French ever knew was capable in the Cab Franc. I could be wrong, whatever. But bottom line is, it's a very different quality. It's riper. It's got amazing richness and wonderful flavors, while still having this really great character that separates itself from Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. Incredibly versatile in pairings because of what I'm saying, if what I'm saying is making any sense. Roast pork, Italian meat sauce, roast duck, and lentil and mushroom stew. You can see if it's savory, it works. You can throw in lamb. It's all over the place with what it can work with.
So Italian meat sauce, are you talking about like a marinara?
Marinara, or a even like spaghetti and meatballs, or you could work with
Bolognese, maybe.
Yeah, bolognese, something like that. It's incredibly versatile. If it's got some meat or something savory in it, it will work because the body's not too heavy. So it's not a cab. It's not a Cabernet Sauvignon. The Cab Franc has a lighter body, which makes it land right in between something like Pinot Noir and a Merlot. And so it gives you lots of options. So that
Okay, I'm excited.
is what we're going to have. And I think that this one makes it like the South American expression is in general a really friendly to American style. And that the Antigal is a great winery. And I look forward to sharing with you guys what's going on with those guys next week. So I hope you'll join us. So I think that is the show. We're going to have a toast.
Well, we can see if there are any last comments before we toast.
No, I want no more comments. I'm done. I'm spent. All right, fine.
Any last questions or comments about tonight's wine? Okay.
See that? I intimidated them all into silence. All right. Thank you guys so much. I really love sharing the different wines with you every week. And thanks for joining me and making it possible. Toast to you.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.